class we have already talked about what is the standardization of the test. In this class we would be discussing about types of reliability. So just a brief recap on what we have discussed in the last class. Standardization usually includes three elements, that is reliability, validity and norms. So reliability is if you are able to repeat that test once and again and you are getting consistently high scores, that means the reliability is good. Validity means the test aims to measure what it is supposed to measure, and norms is generalizing those set of tests, and you are able to compare a group of people based on the norms that you have established. So these are the three things that we try to understand under standardization of the test. Now in this session we would be talking about how we can measure the reliability. There are various measures to understand reliability. The four basic forms of classification that we talk about to understand reliability is test-retest method, alternate form method, internal consistency and inter-rater reliability. So these are the four fundamental types of reliability that we will be discussing today. Now some of those, from the name it suggests, like test-retest reliability. So if you are doing a test and retesting it, as I said, after a given time, it would be a test-retest reliability. So we'll start with the test-retest reliability, which is one of the most simple reliabilities. Excuse me. So if I am doing a test at point A, say 10 AM today, and I am doing the same test at 5 PM, I am comparing the results of these two tests. Okay. Now this comparison can be done by a simple correlation or a Pearson's correlation, and if there is a high correlation, I can say the tests are reliable or the reliability is high. A reliability of around 0.80 and more is considered a good reliability score for a test to be considered as a standardized test. Now, here is, I have given a very simple example with means of two weights. You are trying to weight the same thing twice at time 1, say 10 AM again, and 10 PM. And if the scores match, or if the scores are similar or consistent, we can say the test is reliable. So that's a very simple method to understand test-retest reliability. A very important note here, a test-retest reliability, you have the length of the test remains the same. So if you have 50 questions here, you will have 50 questions again that would be asked after a gap of say few hours or few weeks or few months. Okay, so you have 5 students. You have the examination scores of these 5 students, and as you can see here, you have a repeat score that the students are getting after say a period of 6 months. So you can say there is a consistent improvement in the score of the students, but this improvement is consistent. I cannot say, I am not saying that this student from 48 is directly jumping to 98. Okay. So there is a kind of consistency that is maintained among the scores of the students, and this is what is, or what we say, has a good reliability score under a test-retest approach. The next is parallel or alternate form reliability. Now this alternate form reliability is also known as parallel reliability because you are conducting tests in two forms at the same point of time. For example, a person who is appearing for say grade 10 examination, he is asked to answer 10 one-line questions and also 10 essay type questions. Now essay type questions requires descriptive knowledge. You can write as much as you can, but one-line question you need to be very sure about the correct answer. So it's kind of much more objective question. You must be very sure what you are writing about. Okay. So at the same point of time when you are appearing for grade 10 say science paper, You are being judged for your objective skills as well as descriptive skills. So this is what is known as a parallel form of reliability. So we are trying to judge two kinds of reliability at the same time, the objective characteristics as well as the descriptive characteristics. So in this case, we have 5 students who are appearing for the exam. They are being given exams. They are giving exams A and exam B, and they are having scores which are much more consistent, I should say here. Like for the 5th student, there is a decline in the marks, but it's not huge. So there is a kind of consistency here, and this consistency is maintained throughout the 5 students that are appearing for this examination. So you can have for alternate form, I can say there can be 2 forms which are independent of each other. So one is MCQ, other is essay type question, or one is one line objective questions, other is descriptive questions. This can be in 3 forms. First is you have time 1 and time 2. Okay. I am asking both type A questions and type B questions at time 1. That's the first case. In the other case, I am asking type A questions at time 1, and type B questions at time 2. This can be another alternate form of test, or I am asking type 1 and type 2 questions both under time 2. So this can be third type of variation. Under all these variations, what's important to understand is they are alternate forms of variation. So I can say you are judging kind of pre-test and post-test results as well. So there can be circumstances where you are having pre-test results and then you are tallying those with post-test results. So this is a kind of alternate form or parallel form of test. It can be varied on time as well as on form. So it is definitely varied on form, but that can be at the same time duration, that can be at different time duration, and here again at a different time you can have both the forms that are being asked. The next is inter-rater, inter-observer or inter-coder reliability. Now this is something that is very important to understand. Now I will be giving a very simple example to help you understand. Most of the corporate hospitals nowadays have a measuring scale of say 1 to 10. So if you are admitted for say a stomach pain, the nurse would come, nurse A who is on duty would come and ask you, how is your pain rated on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 means a very severe pain, 1 means a very kind of moderate pain or low pain, or I could say no pain even. Okay. So nurse A asks you to scale on 1 to 10. Supposedly you say, I have a pain of 7. The next day, nurse A is not on duty. She is having a off that day. What happens is, you have nurse B that comes in, asks you again the same question, rate your pain on the scale of 1 to 10. You again say 7. Now, there are 2 different people who are doing this. So there are different people who are analyzing. So there can be a chance that nurse A says that at a pain, if I say I am having a pain of 7, she says the person is suffering from severe pain. On the other hand, nurse B comes with 7 and says the person is having moderate pain. That means both of these nurses are judging the pain independently. So what becomes important here is, there should be something that brings in all nurses of the hospital together, and all these nurses commonly decide that if there is a scale of 1 to 4, it would be considered as less pain. On a score of 5 to 8, we would be considering it as, for example, moderate pain, and a score of 9 or 10 would be considered as high pain or anything like this. If there is a common argument between all the nurses and they have a common formula based on which they are deciding or saying that 7 means moderate pain or 7 means severe pain, that seems to be much more okay, rather than each nurse coming individually and objectively perceiving that according to her it's high pain, according to her it's low pain. So it would be very difficult to manage the things. So this is what is inter-rater reliability. It is also known as inter-observer because there is conflict between the two observers or intercoder, or those two persons who are coding this information. So you have observer 1 and observer 2 who are writing the information. It's very important that you have equal here. That means a balance between what observer A and what observer B is trying to do, and there should be a high level of correlation. So as I said, here is a summary of what we discussed. There should be consensus in the observations. So both the two different nurses should have a similar perspective. Okay. Now the score stability is a measure that yields across multiple observers. So once you have a series of observations that are done, you can decide that there is a kind of stability between the scores, and these scores are and after that period of time you can say these scores are consistent. So the nurses can say 1 means no pain, 10 means most pain. So this is something that is decided after a period of multiple observations that are done. As I said, there should be agreement among all the raters. So all the nurses should come together and decide which parameter should be considered as moderate or severe. Now, how can we improve rater reliability? So under inter-rater reliability, the most important thing is you must improve the reliability of each and every rater. This can be done only through guided revisions. A nurse is being followed by a senior nurse or a senior consultant who is advising or guiding him consistently, and a consistent training that is a must to improve the inter-rater reliability. Now, there can be various kind of errors in case of inter-rater reliability, since it is highly subjective in nature. Each nurse is giving her own opinion, his or her own opinion. So there is a lot of subjectivity that prevails under inter-rater reliability. So these are some of the common errors that can occur. If there is a kind of new nurse who is coming in, there can be a lack of knowledge. She might not be aware of what to judge, and she might not be given the standardized parameters that are to be considered. So we call it leniency or stringency error, which is due to lack of knowledge. She has joined you and she is not familiar with the settings. There can be perception differences. A person who is lying down comfortably in the couch and saying, I have a pain of 8. One nurse can say, visualizing the patient, that it does not seem that he is really having that heart pain, but other nurse can say that he is suffering from pain because the person is saying he is marking it as 8. So definitely there is some pain which is not observed. So that is perceptual difference, or the difference based on observation. The next is stereotyping. That means there can be impression of the group that can affect the individual. For example, I am a nurse who is often posted into the area where the people are not suffering from stomachache, and suddenly a person comes in with a problem of stomachache. I am under an impression that this is not a major problem, so I might mark that problem as low as compared to other nurses who are specifically dealing people with stomachache. So that is a kind of stereotyping. You generalize the impression of the group. So the impression of the group is reflected by one individual. And finally, the halo effect. That means you have one dimension that is highly influencing all other dimensions. For example, you have a patient lying on the couch. Okay, you have a nurse that is coming in, and that nurse, seeing the patient, says that this patient seems to be lying very comfortably. Okay, so that is one dimension, the level of comfort of patient that this nurse is highlighting as compared to all other problems that the patient is saying. That level of comfort can be due to that all his near and dear ones are with him, or can be due to a feel that he is into a good hospital or any other thing. Okay, but that nurse would generalize that since this person is having a high level of comfort, that means the pain level that this person is giving on a scale of 1 to 10 is not correct, and the person is suffering a pain lesser than what he is exactly saying. So that's a kind of halo effect, which again affects the inter-rater reliability. The next is internal consistency reliability. Now, internal consistency reliability includes 4 types of reliabilities. The first is average inter-item reliability. The next is average item total reliability. The third is split half reliability, and the last is Cronbach alpha. Now let's first understand what is exactly internal consistency reliability. Internal consistency reliability means I am trying to measure the items to assess a common characteristics among those items. So if I have say 5 items, I am trying to have a common characteristics between those 5 items. Okay, then it's a kind of single measurement instrument that can be applied on one occasion to a set of people. It estimates the same constructs, usually yield same results. So if I have a same group of variables that I am providing to 2 set of population, the results would be similar in both the cases. And lastly, since it's a reliability, so there should always be good consistency in the score. So consistency would be good, but the different items on the scale, there would be different set of consistencies. So let's first talk about the average inter-item correlation. Under average inter-item correlation, I can say I have a set of say 5 items. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. What I am trying to do is I am trying to find the relation between, so here is 1 to 5 and again here is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So 1 and 1, no correlation. I would find a correlation between 1 and 2, say 0.8. Then 2 and 3, 0.5. 2 and 2, no correlation. 3 and 3, no. 4 and 4, no correlation. 5 and 5, no correlation. So what I am trying to do is, I am trying to find the relation between 1 and 2. So again 0.8. 3 and 1, say 0.7 and so on. So what I am trying to do is, I have item and I am trying to find out the correlation between the various items. So here is a simple demonstration. You have the list of items here. 1 to 5, 1 to 6 and 1 to 6. You are trying to have a correlation. So this one is neglected because you are not finding, there is no correlation between the same items. So here are the remaining set of correlations that you have devised, and then you are trying to find out the average of these values, and that would be 0.9 for example, showing that the reliability is quite high. So this is what is average inter-item correlation, very simple. The next is average item total correlation. So here what you are doing under the same set, let me move to the previous slide again. In the same set, what you have done, you have found the correlation between the items, and in the next stage you will be finding a total correlation for these items. So you will have a value here. Then you would try to correlate the values. You will find the average of these values with the total values, and that is known as the average item total correlation. So what you are doing, I'll explain again. You will have the inter-item correlation as well as the total correlation for all set of items, and then you would be finding the average of the total with the inter-item total, and that would be known as the average inter-item total, as you can see here. Now the next is split half reliability. Very important to understand. In the first session when we started, I talked about test-retest reliability as the reliability where the two set of items have the same length. So the length of test is same. But in this case, as the name suggests, split half. That means I am dividing the test into two halves. Now it can be on various parameters. I have items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. I can take 1, 3 and 5, that's the odd figures, and 2, 4 and 6, that's the even figures. I can say the first three numbers 1, 2, 3 and the last three IDs, that is 4, 5, 6. So there can be various ways on which I am breaking this test. So what is happening here is the length of the test, it becomes half. So the actual length of the test is 6 items, but here the length of the test becomes half. So what happens is you have to estimate the correlation from this half for the full length of the test. And for this, what we use is known as the Spearman-Brown prediction formula, which suggests that if half of the items supposedly have 0.5 as correlation, what would be the correlation between the items if there would be all the items present in that test? Okay, so this can be calculated by means of Spearman-Brown prediction formula, which is a must for split half reliability. So under split half reliability, what we do is we split the test into two that can be based on various parameters, as I said. So you have even odd items and even items. 1, 3 and 5, you have 2, 4 and 6. You have the set of first three items and last three items, or any other such combination that you choose. And when you compare these two results, the length of the test is obviously half. You are doing test for 6 items here, but here you are doing it just for 3 items. So you need to shift it to a whole length of test, and that can be done through the prediction formula, which is known as the Spearman-Brown prediction formula. We will be solving numericals on Spearman-Brown prediction formula and Cronbach alpha in the subsequent classes. In this class, we will be just covering the concepts. So this is what is split half reliability. Now, once I am done with the split half reliability, I have the students here. There are scores on even items and there are scores on odd items, and I am trying to correlate these, and based on that I am trying to say whether the reliability would be high or not and the consistency of the test. Now, what is Cronbach alpha? In a very simple term, Cronbach alpha is the average of all possible split half correlations. This is something where most of the students get confused with. How do we understand Cronbach alpha? So, a very simple language to help you understand Cronbach alpha is you take the average of all possible split half correlations. So, let's have the same examples. You have item 1 to 6 here. What I am doing is, in the first set, I am taking the odd items versus the even items. So, item 1, 3, 5 and 2, 4, 6. In the next, I am taking the first 3 items and the last 3 items. So you have 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6. In the next, I am combining 1 with 4 and 5. So on the other side, I would be left with 2, 5 and 6. Okay. Then I am taking 1, 4 and 6. So you would be left with 2, 3 and 5. I would be taking, for example, 1, 3 and 4. So the remaining one will be 2, 5 and 6. Okay. And finally, if I take 1, 5 and 6, the remaining will be 2, 3 and 4. These are some of the combinations. There can be more combinations in this. Okay. So what I do is, I take the all possible combinations. I take the correlation among the items for all these. And then what I do is, I average them out. So let's say this is A, B, C, D, E and F. So what I finally do is, I take an average of all 6 items, the split half reliability of all these 6 sets that I have solved, and that average of the split half reliability not the general average. I'm talking about the split half reliability average. Okay, and that average, what would be here, would be denoted by this sign, and this is known as alpha, or we call it Cronbach alpha. Now this Cronbach alpha is a modification of Richardson formula, which we would be discussing in a subsequent class where we would be solving numericals based on these concepts. So with this we cover the general types of the basic 4 types of reliability and all the subparts of internal consistency reliability. We would be talking about the types of validity in the next class. You can subscribe to Exam Base channel for updates on that. Till then, have a good day.